So it's time to talk about Arsenal. How would you rate their transfer window?
Arsenal. Interesting, right? The biggest spend they've ever done. They finally got what they've been asking for years. I think they spent about 270 million. Basically 300 mil when you consider Hincapie's, going to be permanent next year. Man, they've gone for it. They've gone big, and to be fair, I'm quite impressed because I look at the big signings like Zubimendi and Gyökeres. They're very good value for money, in my opinion. About 60 mil for each of them. Good value. Players are in their peak, ready to come in and start and contribute, I think. I think those are players that, well, Gyökeres in particular, I think is something they've needed, right? Havertz, he's a good player, good all rounder as an attacking mid. He's got good technical ability, but Gyökeres, he's a goal scorer. That's his main priority. He also offers something in terms of driving with the ball and gives them an extra threat on the counter attack, I think. So, yeah. Great signing. Thomas Partey left and they had to replace him. So, Zubimendi, um, I think he's a good replacement, a very good replacement. For the price, I think he's probably the best they could have managed on the market. £60 million. All the guys who I would say maybe are higher level would have cost maybe 100 mil plus. I'm talking the Adam Whartons, people like that. So very good signing there. And then the other big one at the end of the window was Eze, right? I like all the other ones. Mosquera, I'll just mention him. Very, very good signing. Maybe the bargain of the summer, honestly. He should be a very good centre back in the long term. Kepa, Norgard, good backup, cool. But Eze is the one that got all the people talking, alongside Madueke, because after the striker, everyone was talking about the winger they needed, right? And Madueke, I've already mentioned that I'm a fan of him. I think as a right winger, it's pretty much as good as they could have done if you're looking for Saka cover. But he's not a left winger.
Yeah.
He can do a job on the left probably, but he's not going to look natural there, in my opinion.
Okay.
So then Eze is the one, right, in terms of probably going to be starting on the left. And I'm a fan of him as a player, but I have things that need to be sorted in my head for it
Yeah.
to be a success. That's what I would say. So that's the one question mark on their summer. Not nothing against him as a player, but just depends on the tactics.
So do you think, obviously, looking at the 11 that you've got on the board here, do you think this 11 is better than what they had last season in terms of starting 11? Because obviously they have improved the squad depth as a whole with their signings. But do you think their starting 11 is necessarily better?
I would say it's it's an interesting one. I'd say it's slightly better in terms of there should be a bit less reliance on Saka to do everything when it comes to progressing the ball. So Saka, a lot of the time, he's picking up the ball from their defenders here, maybe doing a bit of link up with Odegaard, whoever's in midfield, and then still having to contribute in the final third. He's doing so much, and having someone like that is a bit of a cheat code. But they don't have that, or they didn't have that creative threat on the other side of the pitch. So it made it quite easy for other teams to go, the opposition to go, all right, let's focus on Saka, and then we're pretty safe. And then you usually come down to set pieces pretty much. But that's what I think what Eze does give them, and Gyökeres is just a bit more danger when it comes to that left channel, all right? Um, and it's like I wouldn't say Eze should needs to play all the time on the left, definitely not. But having that as a different option to Martinelli for certain games, yeah, it's an upgrade in my opinion.
Okay.
Zubimendi over Party,
Yeah.
different players. I wouldn't say he's an upgrade, but he's a very good player.
Okay, okay. So obviously with Saka and Eze on the wings there, haven't necessarily got an outlet on the wings, but I guess that's where Jokeris is gonna come in handy. How obviously they've already played 3 games. He's got 2 goals in his first 3 games. Do you think there's more for us to see from Jokeres? And how effective do you think he'll end up being for this system?
Honestly, for me, I've seen a lot of criticism for some of his performances so far. I haven't really seen anything to be worried about with him. Like, if you look at him as a player, he's someone who can compete with tough centre backs, yeah, but his that's not really his game in terms of holding off centre backs, hold up play. He's good at it. He's good at it, but I think what is more his real strength at the top level anyway is, similar to a Lukaku, maybe, if I'm giving a comparison. He can travel with the ball at speed, very threatening, and he's a goal scorer.
Okay.
So definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. I see you've got Timber and Calafiori at the fullbacks
Yeah.
positions. Um,
That
that's effectively two natural centre backs
yeah,
at
that's
fullbacks.
true. I mean, it's Arteta, right? It's Arteta ball.
Yeah.
And let's be real, he's a very defensive minded manager. I think okay, firstly, I would have Lewis Skelly there in of the perfect system. And this is where it comes down to making it work with Eze. Because Lewis Skelly, for me, top special player, like he's gonna be one of the best players in the world one day at left back or in midfield. But his natural game is to step into midfield because he's a natural midfielder, right? Natural central midfielder. He could probably do a job as an overlapping left back, but you're not going to get the best of him. You're going to have to really hold him back from doing his natural actions. So if you have Eze here, in my opinion, you need someone who's overlapping. And you say that these two fullbacks are natural centre backs, which they are, yes. But with Calafiori, what you get is just his kind of running ability, going up and down. And it's not that he's going to do anything special, uh, you know, overlapping Eze here, but just offering that option, that running option, I think allows Eze. It's a bit similar to what you get with Mitchell at Palace. He's not the best on the ball, but he is a wing back who's making those runs. It just provides space for Eze to move on the inside, and it's the only way you're gonna get the best out of Eze. So that's why I'll just say that. But you know,
Yeah.
Timber, he's a natural centre back, but he's so good on the ball.
Yeah.
He's a great midfielder. Like in terms of his ability to invert and progress play,
Yeah. He's
he's a top
he's a
player.
complete player, really,
Yeah,
isn't he?
yeah. This defense as a whole, like this is an all-time great Premier League defense. Genuinely,
Mm.
you look at the some of the best ones we've seen from United, Chelsea, maybe talking over 15, 20 years ago. We're talking, you know,
Even if you look at the second choice defense as well, that's a top four
that's
defense
yeah,
in
that's
itself.
exactly. Honestly, right? Like Ben White, very capable. Mosquera, as I mentioned. Lewis Kelly, of course. Hincapié is an interesting one just because I'm not actually the biggest fan of him as a player. I don't think he's worth the money in terms of how good he is as a defender. But what I would say is when you let Kirill go, who I'd say is a better centre back in my opinion than Hincapié, but you replace him with someone who can be a left back and overlap, it just gives you another option. So if Calafiori's out, they can still have another player whose role at left back would be to overlap. And
Okay.
again, it'll be similar to Calafiori. He can do the basics going forward, but
Okay.
nothing
So
special.
last season they finished second, obviously.
Yeah.
Where do you see them? So where do you see that? Where do you see them finishing this season?
That's the magic question, right? That is the question. I mean, they've got they've equipped themselves as best as they possibly could. I really wish they had got someone else here. Personally, I wish they had managed to get a Rodrigo type. Maybe it wasn't possible. Fair enough. But I think it's gonna come down to Arteta getting his tactics right in every game. I look at the Liverpool game that just passed. He got his tactics wrong.
Completely wrong.
Completely wrong. He played Zubimendi, Rice, and Marino. There is no game where that is the right system to play with this Arsenal squad. There is no game.
He came for a nil-nil.
He did,
Clearly.
and it's silly. It's silly because you can't predict which games you're gonna have the advantage. Just because you're away from home doesn't mean that that's not the game where you might be able to win. maybe Liverpool are in much better form when you're playing the second fixture. You really can't uh, you can't predict these things. Isak isn't there yet, right? He's going to be there the next time. So this might have been the opportunity where they could take advantage of Liverpool not quite being at their best, and he's going after it, thinking, "All right, we just need a point." When you could be going after three,
Yeah.
you're losing out, and it didn't work, and that's that's the thing,
Exactly.
right? It'll be harder to
They,
criticize
they
if it
had
worked, but
they had
yeah,
no right backs. Was like covering that right back.
exactly.
There were holes in
There
that
were
team.
holes. Konate had a bad start to the season.
Yeah.
There's so many it was the wrong decision, and it's gonna come down to him because if he plays Eze too wide in a certain game, he's gonna be completely ineffective. I can tell you that already. I don't need to watch him for this Arsenal team to know that. He's got to use him in the right games. He's got to use Martinelli in the right games. He's got to use Rice in the right situations as well, and that's a key one because a lot of the time they had no threat from here. And I don't think it was just Martinelli. It's the fact that Rice, he's a good runner, strong runner, great defensively, but he's not really going to be playing one touch passes into the final third in the most efficient way. That's just not who he is as a player, right? Um, Arteta's going to have to get the best out of him in those games where Arsenal have the ball, more of the ball. He's going to have to use him in an effective way. For me, you use him as an off the ball threat.
Yeah.
That's what you should be doing because yeah, he's great defensively. Where he's good in the attacking aspect is in and around the box. He's got a shot on him. He can make good runs. He's quick.
Decent final pass as well.
Exactly. A good comparison would be McTominay at Napoli, right? A player who his whole menu career was used here in the middle thirds, which on the ball is just not where his skill set lies. But Declan Rice could be, how McTominay is used at times with Napoli, breaking into the box, and that could also make things easier for Eze. Have
Yeah.
something running past him, and when Eze has the ball here, an option running past him, taking defenders away, help Jokeres out because with Odegaard, he's not usually able to start as high as he used to when maybe it was Partey and Xhaka next to him.
Yeah.
He has to drop deeper a lot of the time. So it's getting the balance right. Do I trust him tactically to get this right? No. That's my simple answer. I think he's a good manager, but if I'm comparing to Arne Slot, in my opinion, got his lineup right almost every week last season. I'm judging it off one season essentially. Obviously, he did well in the Eredivisie, but just off that, Arne Slot to me is one of the that's I can't remember agreeing with a manager's lineup as often as I did Slot since maybe Fergie. Like that's how much I rate him. I'm not saying he's Alex Ferguson quite yet, but he's a top manager. So if I'm backing one of these teams, Liverpool and Arsenal, who I think are the favourites, I'm going Liverpool because of the manager.
Yeah. And you think Arsenal second or anywhere in the top
Yeah,
three?
I would say second because if I could compare to City, I could compare to Chelsea. I think Chelsea, if I had to pick who has a better front six out of Arsenal and Chelsea, I would actually pick Chelsea. I would actually with their best team out, and that's one thing because Chelsea have options, and for me, they're not currently playing their best team. But if you have Caicedo, Andre, Palmer, Esteval, either Garnacho or Gittins or even Neto, and then one of the strikers, Pedro or Delap. For me, because of that midfield, especially, it's slightly better. It's just slightly more special. So they're in the race as well, but Arsenal's defense. That's what makes me pick them. I just don't see them losing many games, and I don't see them conceding many goals this season either. So I'll have them second, and I think they could have a real run at the Champions League. That's it for me.